Welcome to the MMA Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Miller. Today we're going to be covering Bellator 102, which features the Season 9 heavyweight tournament kicking off. It also has the semifinals of the middleweight tournament for Season 9, and it also, as well, on the card, has the final of the Summer Series Bantamweight tournament. So a lot to cover. Only 5 fights we're going to be breaking down because those are the only lines out. But yeah, without any hesitation, let's get right to your Bellator breakdown. The first middleweight tournament semifinal bout is going to be Brennan Ward versus Joe Pacheco, kind of the battle of two wrestlers. Brennan Ward actually beat Justin Torrey, who's a slight favorite in that bout to get here. He's going to be coming in here with a record of 7-1. He's actually the slight underdog at plus 115, which I was surprised because Pacheco's coming in as a late replacement for Perry, who we just actually scored on, Perry Filkins, in the last middleweight tournament, and he was a big dog for us that cashed. And Joe Pacheco, his replacement, coming with a record of 6-0. He is the favorite at negative 155. I definitely see some parlay fodder here. I really like him. I've been big on him for quite a while. If you don't follow my Twitter account, I've actually gave him a lot of shout-outs. I think very highly of him. He's got great top control, great ground and pound, awesome submissions from top. And if anything, Justin Torrey, who's not famous, he's a big guy, but not famous for being a great wrestler. He was controlled on the ground he controlled Brennan Ward on the ground. Brennan Ward kind of had some turtle problems. He was stuck there for the first part of the first round, and while both guys are wrestlers, Joe's undefeated, Brennan's only been finished one time. Both guys are finishers. Between them, they have 13 fights, 11 finishes, so you know this one's probably not going to go the distance, but I definitely lean Pacheco. I think he's a little tougher. I think he can get top position and hold it. I think he can drop big bombs and threaten with submissions. I just think he has more tools, and I'm definitely going to be throwing him in a parlay. The next middleweight tournament bout is going to be Jason Butcher versus Mikel Parlo. This should be a good one. Classic striker versus grappler. Kind of who can impose their will more on the other guy. Before this even came out, the lines, I definitely favored Jason Butcher, and I was stunned to see him as an underdog. He's coming with a record of 7-0, finished all of his opponents, 7 finishes. He's an underdog right now at plus 280. When I actually first played him, he was plus 190. I have one unit on him at plus 190, and I played him again last night at plus 300. So I was stunned to see this number. I think it's extremely high. While it's a close fight, I just see a lot of value there. And he's coming up against Mikel Parlo, who is an extremely tough guy, and he's actually a huge favorite, like negative 400, which I thought was ridiculous. The guy's 10-1. His sole loss coming in the last tournament to Sultan Aliyev, who completely controlled him in the wrestling. And did strike with him a little, but really just out-wrestled him, and that really opened Mikel's eyes. You could really see that in his fight in the quarterfinal against Brian Rogers. Brian Rogers, not necessarily the best wrestler. He does have very vicious hip throws, and he couldn't throw Mikel Parlo, and he's definitely improved his wrestling. He even took down Brian Rogers. But even with his improved wrestling, he's just a boxer at heart. Usually finishes guy with strikes. Not very. He does have some offense on the ground. Not much I'd be threatened with. I know Jason Butcher doesn't have exactly the best takedowns, but he should be. If he's smart, he should be able to pull guard and get a submission fairly easily. He's got an amazing guard. He's got awesome submissions and submission defense. He's also got a really good chin and some okay striking. He's a little sloppy. He does lunge forward with his punches, which does worry me against a technical power striker like Parlo. But I do think Butcher could very easily get a sub or control him to a decision. Next is the Bantamweight Summer Series final with Anthony Leone versus Rafael Silva, winner facing Eduardo Dantes, hopefully by the end of this season. But first up, Anthony Leone. He's coming in with a record of 13-4. He's an underdog at plus 165, which I'm surprised it's not more. While he is a veteran, he fought in the Strikeforce and WEC. He's 3-2 in Bellator, and while that does include a win over former champion Zach Makovsky, his last performance against Frank Baca was just very lackluster. He's a ground-style fighter, but just really couldn't get much off. And he's coming up against Rafael Silva, who's got a record of 20-3. 17 of his 20 wins are by finish, and he's a favorite at negative 215. Definite parlay fodder there. That's also going in there with Pacheco. He's got awesome striking. He's a capoeira-style striker. It's really fun to watch, and he's lethal on the ground. His last fight in the opening round, I actually had Rodrigo Lima beating him in that fight, and he worked Rodrigo Lima, which Anthony Leone being a ground fighter, I was very worried that whoever he met in the finals, he might out-wrestle, and I don't see him out-wrestling Silva. If he does get on top, I see Silva threatening with submissions, working his way back up to his feet, and then working his very technical strikes. And he's got all the confidence in the world. He's right now on a 12-fight win streak, and so I think he's just really maybe not looking past Leone, but I think he's definitely got Dantes in the back of his head, and he wants this really bad. I think that title fight, if it does end up happening, would be very, very entertaining, just to say the least. And the opening round of the Season 9 heavyweight tournament, Vinicius Spartan versus LeVar Johnson. Vinicius Spartan, he's 1-1 in Bellator. He's mostly a striker, but he does have a ground game. He does hold a submission win over Mark Halata, which was very impressive. Mark Halata is no slouch. And he's coming with a record of 6-3. He is the underdog at plus 180. There's not nearly enough value in the world for me to play this, but this is one of those times where I really wish that the more books would put out props for Bellator, because Spartan by submission would be, I would love to see if that was high, and there's definite value there, especially against LeVar Johnson, who has a little bit of poor submission defense. He's coming with a record of 17-7. He's a favorite at negative 260, and that is what I'm going to close off my parlay with, the one that I'm suggesting, Pacheco, Silva, and LeVar. Silva's just really hittable, and LeVar's a big, strong guy. He should be able to force Silva up against the fence like he likes and deliver those big uppercuts, which I'm sure Spartan knows that's what he's going to do, but I don't know if he's going to be able to stop it. Spartan doesn't have very good takedowns, so I'm not worried about that either. Unless he tries to pull a Stefan Struve and pull guard and go for an armbar, I really don't see him having the tools to compete with LeVar Johnson. And so I think we're going to see Spartan go to sleep probably early, probably relatively early. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I do have an underplay, under 1.5 at negative 120, which is currently even money with the over. But yeah, under 1.5 rounds, negative 120, I think that's a very high possibility and should probably cash. And the main event of the evening, Czech Congo versus Mark the Hand of God Beer. A couple people were surprised when Congo decided not to re-sign with the UFC and sign with Bellator, and I'm sure Rampage being on his team was probably a big influence in that. But yeah, he's like the definition of a gatekeeper. When you think of Czech Congo, you think gatekeeper. I mean, he was the epitome of the guy who, if you wanted a title shot in the UFC, you had to have had a win over Czech Congo. I mean, that was the pattern for a very long time. I mean, he actually debuted in the UFC in 2006 at UFC 61 and had a complete record of 11-6-1 with the UFC. So it's actually a tremendous winning record. But despite that, it's still the same old Congo. He's getting up there in years, and he does the same thing. It's always he starts out with boxing, and then he grabs your shorts, and then he clinches, and then forces to the cage and stalls. And that's not always, but that's as of late, unless you count like getting hit by Pat Barry and reacting. But yeah, that seems to be either he does that or he gets finished. That's kind of what Congo's repertoire is right now. While he still does have power in the hands, obviously, I just don't think it's the same guy. And with a record of 18, 8-2, he is a huge favorite at negative 530. It just kind of amazes me how these line makers can make Bubba Jenkins like a negative 1200, but Czech Congo's only negative 530. But that's beside the point. Like I said, same old Congo, boxing, not really much kicks, a lot of clinch work. But then you have Mark Goldberg, who a lot of people may not know about. He came off the UK scene. He's 8-1. He's a favorite at plus 385. I actually was expecting more on this and kind of wanted more. I wanted to put a flyer out on him, and I even posted on Twitter that if it was over plus 500, I'd put half a unit on him. And he does have one loss, which is by TKO, but that was while he was injured. I actually listened to a really good interview of his where he had a fractured vertebrae in his neck and had to have a couple surgeries, and that's why he's been out for so long. But he says now he's at full health. But we've never heard that before. But yeah, he's never been to the third round. He's a finisher, and a lot of power in his hands, a lot of good ground and pound. I do see him not necessarily being able to stop Congo. I don't know if Congo's that much stronger. They're about the same height. They're about the same weight. I actually think Godbeer's a little heavier, while Congo has a little bit higher reach, or longer reach. I think Godbeer, on this interview I heard, he made an interesting a statement that there's tons of tape on Congo. He can literally watch hours of tape on Congo, but there's almost no tape on him. So I wouldn't be that surprised to see an upset or something of that nature. But yeah, I'm not going to be playing it till at least gets over plus 500. I know I'm in the very big minority, and a lot of people are going to be betting Congo. And by all means, please do. I'm just not including him into my plays. I think his price is a little too high now for me, and I missed it when it was a little bit lower. But yeah, if Godbeer does get over plus 500, I will be probably making that play. But the only way to know for sure is, because I'm not going to say it on this video, is to follow me on Twitter at Nate Miller MMA, because I don't always have enough time to say everything on here. So if you have any questions, if I change my bets, which I do a lot, follow me on Twitter. But with no time to waste, let's just get right into it and preview all the bets that we just suggested. First up is LeVar versus Silva. This is my confidence parlay. I got it at plus 150. I know the lines have shifted a little, so the value might be down, but hey, it's probably going to cash, so that's why I suggest it. Up next, Lavar Silva Pacheco. This is my extended parlay with Pacheco. It's plus 117 or plus 317. You can get it right now for plus 234. A lot of value there. And then the underdog, we got Butcher plus 280. That's the current line. I have it at plus 190 and plus 300. A lot of value there. Then for unders, Spartan and Lavar under 1.5, negative 120. I think that one will cash. I'm pretty confident in it. And our other under is going to be Silva and Leone under 2.5 plus 150. Now that's when I got it. Right now it's plus 115. Still plus money there. That's some value. Silva's a finisher. Leone might quit on him late. We'll have to see. And our final but last 0.5 unit parlay, Lavar, Silva, Pacheco, and Butcher plus 1,168. That's some value. Now, not all these plays are suggested. It depends what kind of money you want to put down. My units vary, so if you want to get my units and figure out what plays are the best value, or if anything changes, if more value pops up or more lines get put out for the prelims, who knows? You can follow me on Twitter at Nate Miller MMA. All I talk is MMA. This is what I do. Love to discuss it with people. So yeah, find me on there, Nate Miller MMA. It's spelled like it sounds. Special shout out to our new promoter, Fight Fans Radio. They're going to be pushing this podcast from here on out, and they actually showed my dumbass how to make it longer than 10 minutes, so they've already raised the production value quite a bit. And also the MMA analysis, they feature our videos, but besides that, check out the MMAmovement.com for the #1 grassroots site on the web and all things MMA. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the fights.